Everything you got. Then Monday night rolls around and you realize there's a shot. You're only 10 points away. All those times when your team had no fight, they're just so gosh darn frail. Then your star quarterback let another deep ball sail, and your third round pick bet on his team. Then go check out our streets where everybody knows your pain, and they listen to complaints. You wanna be where you can see our bodies bring you no shame. You wanna go where everybody knows your pain.
Welcome into another episode of Dad Bod Fantasy Squad. So before I introduce here, we have House joining us. First official fantasy football episode for the season. But Norton, before I introduce you here, I saw in the pre-show, and nobody else could see this, obviously the intros going and everything, you were transporting a cat above your head.
Yeah, it got a little wild over here. You know, that's how it's wild on a Monday night over in the Norton household. But yeah, he was like, usually he's on the other side of me. I mean, you guys see him occasionally making a little appearance behind me.
Yeah.
And this time he's just like right up on my side. Yeah, nudging into me, keeps like trying to push me off, and I'm like, dude, just go.
I thought you were getting stretches in, dude. I didn't even know what you were doing.
I
thought it was like your pregame routine.
That's the ritual, you know.
Yep, that's funny.
Tears running down your face, like was that No Sean Moreno? Was that him?
Yeah, that was him, dude.
But I felt like this is the time where like I actually feel like we're in a simulation or something, because the Philly coach, I can't think of his name right now, Sirianni. Had almost the exact same tear during the anthem at the Super Bowl. I was like, oh my God, it's the No Sean Moreno cry.
Dude, as soon as I saw that, like when that happened, I told my wife, I'm like, that's just, he's going to get torn apart all over. I was like, it's the new meme now coming up.
Dude, it looked the exact same. And like, I thought it was pretty funny.
For sure.
House, you're already knee deep in softball and baseball tourneys, yeah?
Oh yeah. Spent the whole weekend at the ball field, buddy. Yeah, celebrated Mother's Day by watching my daughter play, watching our friend's kid play, and then watching another friend's kid play. And it was all Missy's choice. I didn't force her into any of it.
It's probably nice. It's a fun atmosphere to be. I remember as a kid being there, and it was always a fun atmosphere.
Yeah, man, it was good. We got to watch our friend's team win a championship, so that was cool. Kid I used to coach, and it's a good friend of the family, so it was nice to see.
That's another thing too. Like at least when I played sports, I wasn't good enough to be on these travel ball teams. So there was one championship. That was it. You played for the playoffs, and then maybe you do a tournament team in August. And then maybe even that you do a fall ball team. But outside of those, but they have like playoffs, or not playoffs, I guess, tournaments weekend.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We were in Ontario and Mansfield this weekend. We're in Lebanon this coming weekend. We're all over the place, man.
Yeah. The Mansfield would be about an hour and a half from you, right? Maybe not you specifically where you're located, but about from Columbus.
So the fields in Ontario are about an hour and a half. Mansfield a little bit shorter, but not much.
Yeah. Brian's wife, that's where she graduated from, Ontario. Yeah, Willie, we are covering starters today. We are going to hit some news. We're going to kind of quick speed them. If either of you guys want to, I'm going to literally kind of read them off the prompt here. Norton has a nice list of news here. If you guys want to chime in, just interrupt me. Say F off, Mario, or something. I don't know. Some way to let me know. NFL schedule was released. Anyone have any thoughts on it? I haven't looked.
I haven't either. Some good videos and some bad videos.
That's all I've seen is the video.
Basically, yeah, those schedule release videos. Yep. Pretty much. I mean, I haven't dove into it enough to really know. And by the time, that's the thing, is like by the time we get there, like trying to figure out strength schedules hard enough, and things
I
change so
feel-
much, so it's like
Yeah.
it's tough.
It's an overcomplicated matter when you're already trying to figure out your team and how you're strategizing. Like schedule isn't worth it yet.
Yeah, I think the biggest area is if you're deep in best ball drafts, like trying to strategize for late kind of trying to strategize in terms of
the
like
15 through 17, how
15 through
weighted it is.
17 weighted, because once you hit that, you want to be real heavy, that you want to have like players going against each other so you can push ceilings, kind of like DFS style, like, so it's like
my argument against that is, and I truly don't remember. I remember the big stink on Twitter about people saying this 15 through 17. Make sure you're looking at the matchups. Wouldn't Seahawks be a juicy matchup? And their defense ended up being relatively nice. But this time last year, Seahawks were a bottom 3 team, especially the defense, and their defense wasn't bad.
Yeah, that's the problem with it, is you trying to look too far in the future. I mean, you have to, in the sense, I prefer actually not even necessarily like looking at the matchup specific, but being like, if you're gonna stack a team, say you want to stack the Bengals, whoever, look at who they're playing in those weeks and maybe try to get a player or two from each of those teams or whatever. That way you're having players play in the same game. Because one of the biggest like DFS tips that I always give people is like, you want to build your stack and have a run back from the opposite team, because you want that game to shoot out
every week.
Yep.
Yeah, you want that game to shoot out. So like
you called it the run back.
Yeah, so you want to have that run back
Yeah.
in your best ball situations like this. So like for me, it's more looking at, I to be honest, I haven't even really done too many best ball because I'm so deep into baseball stuff.
Really
But
take a deposit from me.
yeah, so it's like, but that's what I would be looking at, is more of not necessarily the strength of the matchup, but just the team matchup itself, getting players to be able to like push that ceiling of each other.
All signs pointing to Minnesota moving on from Dalvin. Fantasy impacts if he does get released. House, this is music to your ears after I tried to get Madison forever, which we've all had. This has kind of been like building. So you had the foresight to grab Madison early on from me, I think last season, but to hold on to him and then for this to play out, which I think has been kind of playing out since February, January area.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels great for you, right?
Yeah, I mean, that was my thought all along, was he was a guy that could come in and produce, maybe not at the same level, but pretty close to the same level, right, as a backup running back as Dalvin does as a starting running back. And if Dalvin gets moved, and I mean, obviously there's an option, there's the potential that he gets released and then re-signed on a team-friendlier deal, things like that, and it's not as big of an impact for him. But, I mean, to be able to hold on to a guy that might be a starting running back that I didn't spend any capital on at all, hardly, last year.
Yep.
I'm just waiting for you to start offering me ones for him, Mario.
It's probably not far away, especially looking at my running backs. Panthers plan to get Miles Sanders 50 catches. I want to touch base on this, but I think I want to save this. Yeah.
It's fair.
But that must be super fair then. Bears don't want bell cow. Herbert value down and Roshan up. This is interesting because we are trying to focus on rookie. I just kind of reached on Roshan in a startup. Is there anything you guys want to touch on Roshan, Herbert?
For me, I never saw Herbert as kind of that bell cow to begin with. And always kind of anticipated a split. So it doesn't do a ton for his value for me, because I never really had him in that role. So I think it probably ticks Roshan up a little bit, knowing or assuming based off this report, right, that they're going to split carries more. You never know what's going to happen, obviously, but doesn't do a ton for Herbert for me, but probably ticks Roshan up a little bit.
Yeah, I would say similar for me, although I did, I liked what I saw out of Herbert when he got the opportunities. I wasn't sure what they were going to do, to be honest. I think obviously once they drafted Roshan, it was kind of a sign that they didn't really want Herbert to be a bell cow. But at the same time, I was like, well, need to do well with opportunities. So I did like him a little bit. This does hurt him a little bit for me, maybe a little bit more than House, who already had him down a little bit. So I'd pull him down a little bit more probably. But then, yeah, Roshan up. But it does help Roshan, obviously. The fact that he's probably going to play a decently significant role.
And there's a lot of when we get Robbie on here, he'll give his love for Deontay Foreman because he's already texted me about it. Ron Rivera eyeing more touches for Gibson. Are you buying it? As much as I want to, right? We always want to buy this exact same sort of. This comes out every year. This year feels like the time, right? We got Coach, the OC from Kansas City coming over. He revitalized Jarrett McKinnon's year. This feels like the year for it. But the only thing that I'll also add to that is Ron Rivera has literally said this the past 2 seasons. He has said it the past 2 seasons.
It's funny because I feel like Gibson's been kind of turning into the poor man's Jacobs, where like every year we heard Jacobs is gonna get more receiving work, he's gonna get more touches as a pass catcher, and it just never happened. And it finally did. And I say poor man's in the sense of Jacobs was a first round pick with higher draft capital, a bigger prospect than Gibson. I'm not buying it until I see it. I mean, like you said, Rivera says it all the time. He called him Christian McCaffrey light. Like it's just like, dude, I can't trust him when it comes to when his coach speak stuff.
All I could think about on this was, are we going to get him more touches, but it's on special teams like all the reports from last year, right? Like when all you heard was he's playing kick return or punt return or whatever it was. I'm with Norton. I'm not buying it until I see it.
Yeah. I feel it. Pete, I'm going to start running through these so we can get into some rookie wide receivers. Pete Carroll gushing over 7th round rookie. Kenny McIntosh. I mean, dude, I liked McIntosh before. The situation seems weird, but it's a guy we'll talk about, I'm sure, at some point. Javonte hopefully might not need PUP. The pup list, scary.
Hopefully might not.
This is that's the exact quote from Peyton.
Oh, man. That's the exact quote was hopefully might not.
How's that make you feel, Mario? You still have him? I haven't even looked.
I drafted him in this most recent startup because, well, we're not playing for this year, boys.
Way to know where you're at and set your sights down the road.
Yeah.
A realist.
Michael, it is. It's very, I'm aware. Self-awareness is at a full. The first half was great. Second half sucked. Michael Thomas has hardware removed from foot. Does it matter? It's encouraging, right? Short answer.
Yeah. I mean, another one, believe it when we'll see it. It's crazy because it's such a huge fall off, man.
You're 4 years removed from Michael Thomas being a stud at this point. Yeah. Right? 2019 was his last big year before all the injuries and whatnot. I mean, could he be an effective receiver again? Absolutely, but at this point, you gotta see it to believe it with that guy.
Man, it's so crazy too. Just like thinking about him and Odell Beckham, like the paces that those two were on, like all-timer type paces, and then just going through crazy injury stuff every year.
Yeah, it was. They had that Hall of Fame, what seemed like the Hall of Fame locked up, and I know that's definitely stressing out, marking them a little bit too soon, but it did seem like both of them were going to have hell of careers, and yeah, injury bug hit them hard. Malik Willis, roster spot in jeopardy. I like the guy. I hope he finds a roster spot, but I don't think we care if it's Tennessee or not. I'd rather it be somewhere else.
My opinion, he's the kind of guy that'll stick around. People will keep taking chances on him just because of the athleticism.
You know who will. Oh, Mikey T.
He might.
That's his project.
I thought you might be going there. But I've actually heard reports.
He liked him.
They liked him last year, and they thought they should bring him in as a project.
I would love to see him go to the Steelers. I don't know if I would love it for my Browns, but I think there's a couple coaches that could If nothing else, make him a serviceable backup. Kyle Trask and Baker Mayfield to get even more reps. We're at the bottom of the news list. Norton did say that it starts getting less and less appealing to the masses. Chris Godwin supposedly expanded role. We're going to skip the question, but that is kind of, I think that increases his fantasy value a little bit. So I guess I'm not skipping it. Would you guys agree?
I guess the reason I think obviously more that's the reason I put both of them. I put that one together with the Kyle Trask one, obviously.
Right with the one right above it. Yep.
Yeah, but I think it's more obviously Chris Godwin more fantasy relevant than those guys. But the thing is that he's still going to be catching balls from one of those two, likely, or both at some point. So I think it does help. I think it does help offset like the decrease in efficiency he'll likely see at the QB position. So maybe he can get more volume in terms of deeper routes, more because I think he set a career low in ADOT last year, which is fine when you have Tom Brady and you're getting volume. But like with these guys, It
was an off injury year, right? Like, I mean, we talk about it a lot on this podcast that guys coming off of injury, it's a little bit tough. Not just the beginning, a majority of the year. He was off of ACL, a late ACL. He played pretty damn early compared to what we normally see football players play from the ACL injury. So, I mean, keep that in mind. Only 26, 27. He's a younger guy.
He's really young. Yeah. He's pretty young. He might even be younger than that, to be honest.
I want to say 26.
Yeah. And the other thing is, like you mentioned with coming off the ACL, honestly, I think what he did last year was an extreme win versus what could have happened, what normally does happen. So yeah, he's 27 as well, by the way. But yeah, I'm really encouraged for him just as a player in general.
And then this is something that we have mentioned on here, but I do want to bring it back up. Foster Moreau signs a 3-year with the Saints. Obviously super amazing to see after his cancer diagnosis. I can't think of the exact, is it Hodgkin's?
Yeah, Hodgkin's.
I think so.
The fantasy impact would be Juwan Johnson may, because of this contract, which about $12 million, if I'm not mistaken. Juwan Johnson, who was hyped as a pretty nice sleeper for Derek Carr in this offense, might take a hit from this, maybe, but it's hard to say. I mean, you got Taysom Hill, Foster Moreau, and Juwan there now. Go ahead, House.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's fantasy impact aside, right? It's good to see that this guy's moving forward right after the diagnosis. It's always good to see things like that. To your point, with Johnson, might take a hit. Was he going to be a top end, tight end one? Probably not. But Moreau showed that he had some chops, right? People were plugging and playing him a few times last season, and he was putting up some decent numbers when he got the opportunity. So probably a little bit of an impact there, but regardless of what happens, good to see him get through it. Good to see him sticking around in the league. And I think that's the biggest thing to take away from this entire thing.
Pretty cool to see him play this year. Because this was just in February, I think.
I think so, yeah.
Pretty insane. Yeah. Let's get into it, boys. So we want to talk. We're going to get to the meat and potatoes. I think I say potatoes like my Italian parents. Well, it's really it's my Italian mom or my Italian dad and my mom that thinks she's Italian. And they always say potatoes. Rookie wide receivers. So we got a couple highlighted guys here. Obviously, we're going to kick it off with the most important one, right? The 101 of rookie wide receivers, Jackson Smith-Njigba. Norton, kick us off.
Yeah, so he's my favorite of the group, most people's favorite. He went first in the draft, although he slipped a little bit. I think people were kind of expecting him to be maybe in that 12 to 15 range. Yeah, dropped to 20th. Started that receiver run, but I do think he's the best of them. I don't think the landing spot's necessarily ideal in terms of like immediate impact. But that was kind of thing that was mentioned about like when AJB went to Tennessee, landed in a run heavy offense. Jefferson landed in a run heavy offense with Adam Thielen still there too, when Adam Thielen was at the kind of prime Adam Thielen. And then obviously with JSN landing where Lockett and DK already are. And as much as Geno, looked great last year, I mean, it might be tough for Geno to support three, kind of higher end, mid to high end guys. So the immediate impact, I'm a little bit nervous about it, but I don't. Oh, I mean, it's where he's going in redraft kind of right now. Over on Underdog, I think he's around 57th. He's like the 29th wide receiver off the board. Fantasy Pros has him as 91 for redraft right now, ranking with 37th wide receiver. In Dynasty, he's 24th overall in Superflex and 13th wide receiver. Obviously, huge jump there considering it's Dynasty. He's a rookie, top rookie receiver. But for redraft purposes, where we're at right now, I mean, it might be tough for me to get him around that Underdog ADP. If he's goes closer to the Fantasy Pros, like 90th, 37th wide receiver off the board, I'm okay taking that shot because it's, you're looking at a back end wide receiver 3 with upside. He's obviously talented. Every year we see these wide receivers, the top ones, sometimes they end up slipping because we're, kind of concerned about how much volume they get. And then it seems like we've been spoiled recently. I don't know if we've just been spoiled recently with all the guys, Garrett Wilson, Olave last year, Chase obviously recently, Jefferson recently. So it's like, I don't mind taking when it's my, back end wide receiver 3.
Yeah. House, did you have any thoughts on JSN? So you drafted him in our main league, right?
I did. Yeah, I had the 101 and then I came back with the 105. And I was sitting there debating between him and Gibbs taking running back after Bijan. And I decided to go with the receiver just based off of team need more than anything else and wanting to get the top receiver in the class. When I think about JSN, right, a couple years ago when we had those guys, Wilson, Olave, people were saying he was the best one in that room. And that was his freshman year. Injuries last year kind of kept him quiet. So you would have liked to have seen a second year of that type of production that he had coming into the league this year. But
we lost House. He's completely gone. Hold up real quick, House.
Are we back?
You're back. Go ahead. So you said you would like to see that production. Real quick, we only got 1 year of JSN in college? Can you hear me?
So I think are we good?
One?
Is my internet being dumb?
Yeah, it's like a little choppy right now, but I hear you now.
Sorry, boys.
No, you're all right.
Are we good now? Okay.
Yeah, you sound good.
Okay, cool. So I think he had I think he played a little bit as a freshman. His sophomore year was great, and then it was this last year where he was injured, right? So I think he was technically there for 2, but it was very minimal usage the first one. So you would have liked
10 receptions is
you would have liked to have seen that after that big year that he had another one. And I don't know if that played into why he slid a little bit or not. The injury concerns, the landing spot to Norton's point. I don't know if Geno can support all 3, but I mean, he's going to take over for Lockett, right? He's going to be that guy that fills in kind of that role. He runs great routes, makes plays after the catches. I think he's going to be down the road a high volume receiver, right? So that's why I felt comfortable grabbing him as a top receiver off the board in our dynasty league. And, redraft, obviously you have to have a little bit of you have to pause a little bit because of the landing spot, but I'm excited about him, man. I think he's going to be good. And his brother plays for the Pirates, so I also had to draft him there.
Yeah, so like Tyler Lockett is 30 years old this year, and again, I agree with both of what you guys are saying as far as the redraft. It's hard to see where that path happens, but this is a wide receiver that's 30 years old. He's 180 pounds. I mean, he has been notoriously healthy throughout his whole career, probably one of the most healthy wide receivers. But there is that window, right? Like he's up there in age, not to mention that three wide receiver sets are much more common. JSN's already very familiar with the slot. Like there's a lot of points where you're like, well, if he falls in redraft and I'm wide receiver needy and I need a high upside guy, why not? Wide receiver 37, if that's where he's going, I don't know. I'm sure we will dive into more when we're talking heavier on redraft and to see where it plays out towards the year. But I mean, the note that I had is they are really, and I know this is getting a little off topic here, but they are really setting up Geno to be their QB for the next 5 years, 5+. I mean, this is a team that met with, and granted, 3 of these guys were gone by their pick. They met with Stroud. They met with Hendon Hooker. They met with Bryce Young. They met with Levis. They met with Anthony Richardson. They met with all of these QBs and ended up saying, no, we're good, at least on 2 of them, and didn't trade up for another, like the other one. You know what I mean? Like there was an opportunity for them to move up as well. So they definitely are setting up Geno to be this QB, their franchise QB, and they're adding weapons around him. I mean, you added another young wide running back, and then you add JSN, the highest rated wide receiver coming out of college this year. I have a lot of belief in the guy because they believe in him so much. And their draft, outside of running backs, typically, their drafts have been so good recently. So that is enough for me to get a buy-in for Dynasty and possibly redraft.
You're saying for Geno? Is that for Geno?
Well, not only Geno, but JSN
too.
Just
saying, yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah. No, I'm hoping the Geno, as I've already made 2 trades for him so far in the past week or so. So I'm working on a third.
They literally have said everything that they have done is like, we're all in on this guy. We have got the best out of him. He was highly drafted in 2013, I think was the year. I think 2013 was the year because it was historically bad. But he is carrying the 2013 draft class on his back. He said, EJ Manuel, I got you. I'm trying to think of who else was in. It was a bad class. I'm trying to think who else. But
horrible,
I think he was up there.
Yeah.
Tyrod Taylor, maybe that class too.
Man, it's so bad. I try to not think about it too much, but
I'm gonna derail us. We'll kick off to the next wide receiver. This is where it gets a little bit murky, though. I mean, there's a lot of people that will say the next 3 could arguably be switched any way that people want. Really, I mean, this is. We're gonna go according to your list, which I assume is your ranks, Norton.
I did put them in my order. Yeah.
We're going to go to Jordan Addison, and we're going to actually kick off with House on your thoughts on Addison.
Yeah, so I think I might be higher on Addison than a lot of people, and even with the landing spot, right? Like everybody's saying that, he landed in Minnesota with Jefferson, and he's obviously going to eat up the fair share of targets there. Listen, I think Addison is a sneaky player, right? So I watched him. We all know I'm a Pittsburgh guy. I went to Pitt. I watched a ton of Pitt football. You've heard me talk about Kenny Pickett. You've heard me talk about the Steelers, all that good stuff. And every week in and out, Addison would do something I didn't expect, right? He's not the biggest guy in the world. He's not the fastest guy in the world. He runs good routes. He gets open, and he just makes plays, man. And I think that in this offense with Jefferson commanding the attention that he is going to command week in and week out, that Addison is going to be a sneaky, not necessarily a sneaky play, but I think he's going to have a sneaky good year. You saw Thielen be effective mostly because of touchdowns. KJ Osborne had some run there. I'm a big fan of Addison, and I like the landing spot, I think, more than most. At least from what I've been reading, instant reaction to now. I hated when he left Pitt and went to USC. I wish he would have stayed. But understand NIL, all that good stuff. And it probably got him a higher draft pick just because of the quarterback they went and played with. So it got him into the first round as opposed to where he would have slid probably if he stayed at Pitt. So I think he's I think he's going to sneak up on some people that are downplaying it because he's with Jefferson.
Yeah, and I think I just want to, and I'll let you go here, Norton, just 1 second. I just want to add one thing. There 2 things about this class. We are seeing a shift, and maybe I missed this last year's class, but I don't think I did. We definitely in this class are seeing a shift of wide receivers that don't necessarily have the NFL size like they used to.
No.
Like look at this class. This class is incredibly undersized considering, like, as a whole, considering to what we've looked at in the past. With the top 5 guys, maybe it's not top 5, but it was at least the top 4. 2 of them are pretty average height, and then we got 2 guys that are normal NFL size. Secondly, all of these wide receivers, it was kind of like glorious for fantasy, right? Like the landing spots that you get on. Let's look back last year, right? We saw a ton of wide receivers that got drafted within the first 17 picks. We had London, Olave, Wilson,
Burks.
I'm missing one, Jahan Dotson and Burks. 3 out of 5 of those, maybe you could argue Wilson as well, which would be 4 out of 5, have been horrific landing spots, like terrible. Drake London's value has been diminished, not insanely, diminished because of his quarterback. Treylon Burks, we don't even know what to think about anymore. Jahan Dotson's playing with Sam Howell or Jacoby Brissett, and Garrett Wilson played with make your life hell, Zach Wilson. So the what we could have solved.
Let's not forget about Mike White.
the goat, Mike White. What we saw from Garrett Wilson may have been minimized. Like, this dude might have been the next Jamar Chase, the next Justin Jefferson, but he was playing with the goat, Mike White, and Zach Wilson. So I think the landing spots for all of these guys has been the best thing. It's not, I wouldn't say it's like the best landing spots, but like you're getting some good quarterbacks with every guy that we definitely highlight on today's episode. All right. With that being said, Norton, sorry, I didn't mean to go on such a tangent.
No, it's good points. It is interesting because that's the thing is like, it's rare we find a spot where it's a true like love because you're stepping in, generally the earlier that you get picked, you're getting a worse QB. I mean, generally. And then as you get deeper, if you have better QBs, a lot of times there's already established receivers, and a lot of it might be because the QB is making the receiver better. So it's hard to really get that perfect mix. And like you said, last year it was more of bad landing with bad QBs. Although like the London landing spot at first, I feel like a lot of people liked it because it was like, okay, well, it should be him and Kyle Pitts just dominating targets. And they did dominate targets, like all 12 passes. So they threw a game, and Arthur Smith's system is ridiculous. But yeah, so when it comes to Addison, I'm with House on this. Like, I think the landing spot is much better than people are giving credit for. We talked about Dalvin earlier. So if Dalvin leaves, they could shift even further towards the pass. I mean, Madison has been solid and good, but he's not Dalvin explosive.
I got confused. I really got lost for a second. Madison, Addison.
Oh yeah.
I was like, what? Who's Madison?
Yeah.
So get it together, Mario.
I
know. But then so they could shift even further into the pass. They obviously got Hawkinson last year, and he was awesome for them. So I mean, they could have 3 really dangerous weapons. I believe, and I saw a thing that Adam Thielen ran the second most routes among all wide receivers in the NFL. You put Addison. I mean, I like Thielen as just a veteran player. Like he's just a good veteran receiver, but he's more of a touchdown producer, as we've seen. As he's gotten older, that's more of what he's done. You put Addison running the second most routes in the NFL. If he can step into that, I mean, obviously you can't expect him to run that many routes, but if he steps into that kind of role and runs that many routes, the guy at this point of his career versus Thielen is much more explosive, probably a much better route runner in terms of maybe not like savviness, but in terms of being in and out of the cut. So yeah, and you're getting to play with Kirk Cousins in likely a more pass-heavy offense. Should be in a dome for half his games. Like, I like him a lot. He's my wide receiver 2 of the class. I have him number 7 overall in like rookie superflex drafts. Really only behind Bijan, the big 3 QBs, Gibbs and JSN. So after that, that's where he's going for me. I'd take him as high as 7 in superflex, as high as 4 in 1 QBs. So yeah, I like him a lot.
The note that I had on him was I think the last piece about this is like we look at guys like T. Higgins, we look at Jalen Waddle, we don't discount their value because they're with an alpha wide receiver. Like if their talent is there, which of course I don't know if Addison is quite Waddle level, definitely not Waddle. He might be close to somewhere where T. Higgins is, but different play styles. It just, I mean, the wide receiver 2 is relevant in NFL today. The ball is thrown a ton more. You could even make the argument like we were talking about JSN. Like it's much harder to see a wide receiver 3 be relevant in an offense. But in this one, where you're coming from the McVay coaching tree, who they love running 3 wide receivers out there as well, like it should be good for fantasy and it should help JJ, but it also makes you wonder, like, does he take any ding from this? To be continued on another episode. The next wide receiver we have on Norton's list here is Quentin Johnson. I would say that this is arguably, out of the top guys that we talked today, we have 4 guys that we're really heavily focusing on. He is probably the biggest. I would say he's the biggest. Like you could get him at 2. Some people will have him at wide receiver 2, maybe even possibly 1. And then some will also have him wide receiver 5 or 6. Norton, what's your thoughts on Quentin Johnson?
Yeah, so when it comes to him, he's my 3. I think him, Addison, and the guy we'll talk about next, Flowers, is they're all in the same tier, like you said. I think you can make an argument either way. When I first impact, like first thought, I had Johnson 4th. But just the more I kind of looked at it, the more I thought about it, the more I read on people that I trust and things like that. I kind of moved him up 1 spot. I still can't get him over Addison personally because I just like that too much. I don't mind if people do though. And they're all going in the similar spot, but obviously he's the one with that prototypical size and prototypical size, speed. He's the guy that's big, fast. You're looking at a deep threat kind of guy that can create after the catch. And I mean, the landing spot, again, it's one where it's a good quarterback, but you're also thinking, well, he's got Keenan Allen and Mike Williams to compete with. But long term, those guys have outs, I think, after this year, and then complete unrestricted after 2024. So, long term, he could be tied with an elite QB for a long time if he steps right in and produces and things like that. It might be hard to get volume right away, considering how much of a volume hog Allen is. But I mean, you know how I am with the injury prone labels. But
yeah,
you gotta. I mean, at least even I can admit that these guys have been.
This is huge. This is breaking right here.
I know.
You don't get this in part of your evaluation ever. Not in anything.
No,
I have never heard you. I'm not, look, we're not hoping for anything, but this is a first time note by you where you're like concerned about the injury. And in your defense, this is about 2 players. So you're kind of saying more or less one of them has a stronger chance to get injured like we've seen.
Exactly. But yeah, you got 2 guys who are getting up there a little bit in age, have accumulated injuries on their body over time. Obviously, Mike Williams plays, his play style is prone to injuries.
That's what Norton's guaranteeing here, Will. He said it. You heard it here
Lock
first.
it up.
Norton, lock it in.
Yeah, but so unfortunately, if it does happen, he steps into a prominent role. We saw, what was it, Josh Palmer getting hyped all the time throughout, and I think
he actually finished okay.
You said Palmer?
He finished.
That's what I'm
way
saying.
Better than I ever thought that would happen. Like after watching him, and And really, he's not that great at football.
That's what I'm saying. I was gonna say I'm not a big fan of Joshua Palmer.
37.
I think QJ is a lot better as a player, as a prospect. So if he steps in with a bigger, what's that?
I know I'm keep interrupting you, and I'm sorry. I'm just saying.
No,
I
you're
think
good.
you could go based off of that, right? Like wide receiver 43 is what Fantasy Pros have him ranked at. Joshua Palmer finished at 37. Again, there was injuries last year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably buying QJ before anything. 37, right around there.
Yeah, and that's what I was like. Originally, I was thinking I was going to be more out than in, like for redraft and things like that. But at those kind of prices, again, you're taking a shot on, a first round rookie receiver in tied to a good QB late as a guy that you don't even have to start. Yeah. So I mean, I know I mentioned, put on the thing, I'm more likely out than in. But if he's going at that wide receiver 43 or kind of range, I'm probably more in than out on that.
Now, House, we had a conversation early in the year. You were one of the early people I remember saying, I might be going QJ at, I think it was 105 at that time still. That was January, February. So I know things changed a lot.
It might have been when I was around 109 because I moved from 109 to 101.
Didn't you have 105 the whole time?
I had 105 the whole time, and I was thinking I was probably going to get JSN, and then assuming I was going to come back and maybe get another one, and assumed he would be one of the ones that was going to be there.
So he was always your wide receiver too. I thought maybe you had him at wide receiver 1 for a little bit.
So I don't know that he was always wide receiver 2. He was just the one that I assumed because I figured that another one of these guys that we're going to talk about or Addison was going to probably bridge that gap in between.
Okay.
Kind of where I would get JSN at QJ. 5, and then
gotcha.
And then a couple other ones would probably go, I assumed. So, but I would have been happy with that. Just based on landing spot, the comment that was put in there with he'll be wide receiver 2 all year. Allen or Williams will be out. I 100% believe that. I've said it all last year. I said Mike Williams is the second best wide receiver in the league at falling over when making a catch. Chase Claypool's number 1. And I'll even say that even though he's not a Steeler anymore. But I mean, to Norton's point that he just made, right? Those guys have accumulated injuries year over year over year, whether it's something major or just little, nicks along the way.
Yeah.
That has just impacted their availability. And, this guy's he's a big play waiting to happen with Herbert with a big arm. I was reading some instant reactions to when he got picked, right? And somebody said he helped take a team led by Max Duggan to the national title game. This guy's going to be a stud.
I love when people just give a great perspective on things. Like, that's a good point. Yeah. Max Duggan, I don't think he even got drafted, right? Is he even signed yet?
I don't know.
Out, right?
To be honest with you, yeah, he's definitely out. But the other low key thing here that I was looking at earlier is I also read somewhere that somebody made a comment that Kellen Moore is going to know how to use Quentin Johnston in this offense, and that kind of struck me because I feel like he does put people in good situations. I know he was in Dallas for a long time, and I feel like he used his talent appropriately, and I think he's going to do the same thing here. He's going to say, I got 3 weapons that I can design plays for, and 2 deep threats with Williams and Johnson and Allen kind of running underneath and being that third down receiver and kind of the reliable one. This offense could be scary if they could stay healthy.
I think Kellen Moore has gotten a bad shake, and I think that mostly stems from the Cowboys fans. It's kind of the same way that you say Pittsburgh fans view Mike Tomlin. I've actually, from the outside looking in, have always thought Kellen Moore has done a pretty good job. It's been McCarthy that has no clue what he's doing, but for whatever reason, Kellen Moore took the fall. Willie asked, do you think they trade Williams or Allen if he has a breakout? No, if you heard Norton mention they have an out after this year, I don't think they trade either of them when they're trying to contend for the bowl this year. I don't think it would make any sense. They will take that out if QJ looks amazing on one of those guys. there has been rumblings about Keenan Allen being traded, but there's also been this, like, they view him as, I can't remember the guy that they compared him to, but like this dude played in San Diego, I think, for until he was like 38, 39. I can't remember who it was. But somebody from the Chargers organization said that, and I say San Diego because it was San Diego at that time. I can't remember who they compared him to, but that came out from the front office or a media leak. So I don't know if they would ever get rid of Keenan. I think it would be Mike Williams that would be on the thing. But I did have notes about QJ. I remember reading it was him or JSN in January. I would say probably about January as the best wide receiver in this class. But come February, come March, it was like Quentin Johnson. I don't know about him. And it's weird to watch. And again, this is coming from Twitter, so it's just people's opinions on him. It's weird to watch the trends of these guys. You guys know my love for Kayshon Boutte. He was also in those conversations, not January, February, but sometime last year. Interesting to see how that trends down or up. Zay Flowers is a great example of up, but Quentin Johnson's close to like the most prototypical NFL wide receiver. As I mentioned earlier at the show, that he's 6'3", 208. He ran a 4.49. That's pretty freaking fast for a guy that size. And it's not Calvin Johnson fast, or Julio Jones, who was blazing speed in for his size. But this is pretty fast for a 6'3" dude and 208. I have him as the wide receiver too, and it's pretty easy for me in this class. But mainly it's because he's tethered to Justin Herbert. I mean,
it's fair. Definitely fair.
It's fair and it's not fair, right? Like we see a lot of wide receivers get tethered to Patty Mahomes and it never pans out. It just feels it feels a little bit different. This guy seems a little bit. I don't know. Kansas City just loves draft. Well, they never get a good enough draft pick to take any of these guys, so that typically is what's also happening. Let's move to the last wide receiver on our list. The other one that kind of gets interchanged between the three of these guys, Zay Flowers. Norton, you want to kick us off with Flowers?
Yeah. Flowers end up being the third one off the board to Baltimore, 22nd overall. Again, it kind of is another one where, to me, it doesn't seem like an ideal landing spot for immediate impact. They still have Bateman. They still have Andrews. The team's got a running QB in Lamar. So the pass volume will be just lower in general. So I think he's really good. And again, obviously if it goes down, wide receiver 52, 45 to 52 in that range, sure, I'll take some shots. I think, obviously it's upside from there, but I definitely think it's more of a dynasty play. Like, I think he has the least chance of immediate impact of these four. And that's probably why I have them at fourth. But again, I think he's same tier as these other guys we've been talking about. I think, like I said before, JSN to me is like the tier above a little bit, but the other three that we've just talked about, or the other two that we just talked about, I think he's in the same. You can make the argument. I think it was Robbie that was saying he really, really loves them, just from a pure talent standpoint. So, yeah. I mean, it's just for me landing in one of the most run heavy offenses where you still have Mark Andrews as the alpha target share guy there, and then Bateman, he's been good when healthy.
And this is being brought up here, and this is actually one of my notes. Are they still going to be as run heavy as they've been in the past? New offensive coordinator. What is it? Monken from Georgia also was a Browns offensive coordinator in 2019, I believe. He had Baker throwing the ball. That was the year. It was the only time Baker was able to get 1,000 yards out of Odell and Jarvis.
I would have to think. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how you could.
That's a good comment.
Go. Yeah, I don't know how you could go to a place that has a weapon like Lamar Jackson. Obviously, I think Lamar is an underrated thrower. I think people knock him all the time, and I think he's proven that he's a very good passer. But at the same time, the guy is electric as a runner. Like, to run him, maybe you run him slightly less, but I don't think you want defenses to just know that you're not going to run him as much. Like, taking away that aspect.
A lot of weapons added. They spent a lot of money on this offense.
Yeah, it is true.
Wow.
It is true. It's not me.
How's that your mode?
Sure is.
I mean, there's a lot of money spent on this offense. It would be they bring in a new offensive coordinator. They spend money on Lamar. I would be a little shocked for this to not change. Actually, Alex always talks about this all the time. This offense has been trending down on how much they're running the ball. So they get J.K. Dobbins back. They add some wide receivers. I don't know, man. This may be a completely different offense that we're used to.
Yeah, and I do think obviously just a natural progression as running quarterbacks age, he's gonna run less, eventually at some point. Yeah. I don't know if that's this year. It could be drastically less this year, but even still, like, even if he runs, say 5 to 7 times a game, that's still gonna be more than other teams. Like, he's still gonna run for more yards than all but, I would say all but 5 QBs at the very least. Probably he could lead the league among QBs. So he even still, even if they do scale it back, he's still, just from a pure volume standpoint, probably going to throw less passes. I would say there would probably be 20 teams that throw more passes at least than Baltimore, just conservatively. Could be 25. So I don't know. It's just thinking about it from that standpoint. It's going to be hard for me to get Flowers. But again, like I said, if he's going in that wide receiver 45 to 52 range, I mean, we're talking a lot of upside there. Yeah, for a guy. I mean, you might as well take a shot and see how things play out. If it's a guy, especially a guy you're just stashing on your bench.
I think he is definitely the most difficult wide receiver to nail down. Mm-hmm. The dude rose. And this actually happened all relatively fast. The dude rose in the NFL draft boards within I would say the month leading up to the draft, or at least the information that we were starting to get and see. Because that is the hype that we saw on social media. You kind of saw this wave of people just hyping up Zay Flowers, hyping him up. And then, I mean, for him to get a first round landing spot was pretty insane, or I guess I was a little shocked.
I was gonna say, but what's funny? Before I was just looking at his player profile page, and it's funny that he's compared to Jahan Dotson, considering kind of the similar thing happened where Dotson rose up. It seemed like Dotson rose up later on. There's similar profiles and similar size and speed and things like that.
I think they're both on the. I know this doesn't matter, but I think they were both on that ESPN show too. I don't know if Zay Flowers was for sure yet, but I think he was. I know Jahan Dotson was. That doesn't necessarily matter, but that is interesting.
Yeah, they're both very similar. I think Dotson ran 4.43. He's 5'11", 181. Flowers ran 4.42, 5'9", 182. Like, both went within 6 picks of each other in their respective drafts. So it's like, and both kind of rose late. And obviously it worked out. Dotson played pretty well.
And I think the last piece I did want to add on to Zay Flowers is actually, this goes with Dotson as well, because and this is a newer take from me because I have been watching these Welcome to NFL rookie things and learning more about Jahan Dotson. I was like, man, this guy's awesome. He's got just a great mindset. It was really cool. It's pretty much, I don't want to call it the Hard Knocks for rookies, but it's a cool insight on whether these guys got the right mindset, whether they're ready to go, how they work in a lot of cool things. Everything that we have seen out of Zay Flowers and heard about his interviews is this guy gets it. Like, that's everything that we heard from the GMs that released information about the interviews and about Zay Flowers, is that he was like, he just has a mindset that is ready to work, is committed to the game, wants to play football. He, I believe, is the first person of his family to graduate college, I think is what I also saw. There's just a lot like going for him, and he's striving for even more. So you sometimes want, like, I know we're a fantasy show, but you sometimes want to buy that guy. Jalen Hurts is like the prime example of like buying that type of attitude. Like the dude would work out after games. I said it on the air last year, and it's paying off. He was in the Super Bowl. I don't know. You want that person on your dynasty team, let alone like obviously on your NFL team if you're a general manager. House, did you have any take on Zay Flowers or anything to add?
Yeah, sorry about that, boys. I missed a little bit. Had to make sure I wasn't getting an emergency phone call there.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah, so real quick, Flowers, his QB play in college wasn't that great, which is why I think that he probably was the late riser that you guys were just talking about when I jumped back in here. Dude's explosive. I know I was still on when Norton called Lamar an underrated thrower, and that's what everybody says. I still need to see it. I've seen.
We got a Lamar hater on this show.
I've seen some games where he's made some great throws, but I've also seen him miss a lot of easy throws. And I don't know if that's just whenever I'm really dialed in and he's playing my Steelers, but I've seen him miss a ton of easy throws. When he's playing the black and gold there. So I do think that this gives him a weapon that he hasn't had before. I read a thing that Monken said that he was looking for ways to get this guy involved in the offense. So I wouldn't be shocked if you see him, on some gadget plays, not necessarily just as a deep threat, running past people, but get the ball in his hands and let him see if he can create in space. So to your point, Mario, the last thing I'll say, I do feel like he is the most difficult one to nail down here just because of the landing spot, because of the offense, the new OC, the running quarterback. There's a lot of variables with him that you just kind of have to wait and see on. But I mean, the explosiveness, the speed, it's right there if you just watch any of the tape.
And I think this offense is even tougher. Like you just said, House, this offense has a lot of weapons. Like Mark Andrews, OBJ, we got is likely more involved. We saw Monken likes tight ends at Georgia. They added Rashad Bateman. Like there's a lot of mouths to feed on this offense for what, as you were saying, Norton, a notoriously running O. So it makes it really tough. I mean, yeah, he's the toughest to gauge. But like again, if you're just buying talent, if that's how you're supposed to play and that's how you want to play Dynasty, it puts him pretty high on your draft board. If you're just buying talent and what you know about their work ethic,
Right.
Other wide receivers listed by Norton's preference. We're gonna run through these, and then you guys let me know, and we'll kick off with you, House, on any notes you want to talk about on these guys, and then we'll bounce to you, Norton. We have Jonathan Mingle, Rashee Rice, Jalen Hyatt, Jaden Reed, Josh Downs, Marvin Mims, all the same tier for Norton. House, is there any of these guys that you like specifically are targeting or like a lot this year or in Dynasty?
Yeah, so there's things I like about a lot of these guys, all pretty much in the same tier, like you just said. You just want me to hit a couple of quick thoughts on one or two of them, or?
Yeah, whatever. I mean, honestly, probably the ones you like the most, and maybe if you have somebody that you're really not a fan of.
Yeah, so I mean, I took in one of our drafts, I took a shot at Rice just based off landing spot, right? Anytime you can throw a receiver out there with a guy like Mahomes.
With old Patty.
He's a little bit older. I think he's 23 coming out. I think Jalen Hyatt is the one that landed in a spot where he can have an immediate impact just based off the receivers around him. Yeah. But again, to go back to reading old tweets, I forget who said it and where I saw it and some of the names that were on there, but they were like, hey, let's pump the brakes a little bit, because when he was at Tennessee, he couldn't beat out guys like Velus Jones and some of these other guys to get on the field. So I do think that that he's the one that is in a good spot to make an immediate impact. But
wait, I want to ask you real quick. Do you ever feel like when you see that, that's a lazy argument in a way?
No,
because like we hear it all the time. I mean, look at Burrow. Look at Hurts.
Is it always the end all be all? No, but when you see those things, you have to at least take pause and think, okay, there was something there that made this difference, right? Burrow was in a situation where there were a bunch of guys that were really talented, right? And I forget the Tennessee wide receiver room that Hyatt was in. Was he not a good route runner then? Was he just, the smallest guy in the room? What was it? I don't know. But things like that just kind of stick out to me at times where you have to take some of that into consideration when you're looking at some of these guys. And again, to your point, is it always right? No, but it's something to just give you pause and think about for a second.
Because coaches are seeing that and they're saying this guy ain't better than this guy.
Because it's guys that know more about football than I do.
Yeah, but right? I think how you're saying it, it's not the end all be all. Like there's always more to that story.
It's always just something to think about along the way, right?
Yeah.
Like I always make piece of the puzzle. I always make the joke that Vitaly Potapenko got drafted ahead of Kobe Bryant. So it's not always it's not always the order they get picked in or who gets the most playing time, but there's something there that causes that. But I mean, aside from that, I like Mims. I like the ability that he brings to the table. I'm torn on Mingo. I think he's a good receiver. I think he's athletic. He didn't put up huge numbers. He's got an accurate QB though. If they can get him the ball.
Did you see? So I actually am not sold on Mingo as well. But did you see some of the reasons why his last year wasn't phenomenal? I guess about a quarter of his snaps he played tight end.
No, I did not see that.
Yeah, I think they lost a couple of their tight ends early on to injury, and he played a lot of snaps at tight end. I'm not completely sold on him either, though. I feel like
I don't know that I'm sold on him, but I think he's got good ball skills. I think he's got an accurate thrower.
And opportunity too.
Yeah, and he's got an opportunity to step in and make an early impact with Young
Bryce.
There. So
yeah. Norton, any of these guys you want to hit on as well?
Yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, I think I've mentioned to you guys before, but when it comes to this area of the draft, and rookie drafts, I'm trying to trade out. I basically want to buy on the fact that play on the fact that people fall in love with their specific guy here or there. They want to jump up and grab their guy. They're excited about this young guy, and this is going to be the guy that breaks out. And most of the time, that's not what happens. Most of the time, in a year or two, they look back and they're like, "Man, I can't believe I took this guy over this guy." That's more often what happens. So I want to let someone else look back on that. But at the same time, for what it's worth, like I said, I had him in that order. Mingo is a guy that so he's got the second best athletic score of this wide receiver class, according to Player Profiler. Runs 4.46, one of the bigger guys, 6'1", 226. So I like his combination of size. I like his landing spot, obviously.
He was another draft board climber. I mean, the dude was slated as a third or fourth round prospect, ended up going second round.
Yeah, and I think he has technically the best draft capital of all these guys we're talking about. He was the 8th pick of the second round. Most of them are second round or early third. I think Downs mid third, and then same with Hyatt. It was 6 picks before, but Rice went 24th in the second, 8th for Mingo, Reed went 19th, and Mims last pick of the second round. So they're all in that same. And that's why I have them all kind of similar. I think you can make arguments for or against all of them. Obviously, Rice has the landing spot with KC. Good draft capital at second round. Mingo, obviously, a solid landing spot with Bryce Young there. And
I do have a question for both of you though.
Mhm.
How are we still like? At what point will we give up on rookie wide receivers and even? At what point are we going to say that Kansas City might not be the spot for fantasy? With Travis Kelce being there, I mean, and Patty Mahomes. Like Patty Mahomes doesn't hyper target anybody unless they're absolute elite. Kelce and Tyreek. When are we going to give up on it?
I mean, the thing is that to me, it's just relative. Like it's not like like I'm not more or less like with these guys. It's just for me, it's just a tiebreaker. Yeah, it's the fact of like it's a tiebreaker between them. He has like, you know, they all have that second round, third round draft capital, so that's similar there. I'm not gonna sit there and, you know, like I don't know, you know, well enough to say like I'm super confident in one of these guys specifically to break out. They all have the pluses minus for them, pluses and pros and cons for them, and one of the pros, I guess, is obviously the thing. But I get your point because we've always made that
fool me once, Sky Moore. Fool me once.
See, that's what's I find it funny because Sky Moore
he's gonna taint it for everyone.
Well, yeah, and Sky Moore was the one who just got so much hype and love, and I haven't heard anyone really like hyping
Everyone's
Rice yet,
burned, dude. Everyone, well, I'm telling you, I swear to God, it's just the feeling of I'm not looking into Rice because I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this again.
And that's what I was going to ask. I was like, do you think people are so burned from loving Sky Moore?
I won't even look at Rice. Won't even watch the film.
Maybe that's why I like Rice more because I was the one last year.
You're actually paying attention.
I was the one. I was not even necessarily that, but it was like last year I was the one that was downplaying the Sky Moore love, and obviously it worked out for me. But I mean,
those mini camp videos of him diving, catching the ball. Oh, dude, all of it. Every bit that they put out.
It was the number. It was the jersey number selection 24 for me that really just got him off the draft board. Man, that was just ugly.
Mario notoriously gets sucked into highlight videos, though. So
I really, truly do. Wait, I texted House and Alex one time last season at like maybe 1:30 in the morning. I can't even remember. It was a preseason game, or I was watching last year's footage. And not that I acted on this one, but it was bad. And I remember the exact quote or you said, "This is what you always do," or something like that. I texted House about this absolute no name on Baltimore Ravens. Like this guy was putting on a show in this. I think it was a preseason game. He's like, come on.
It's funny. House will appreciate this one. This might be one of his guys back in the day. But back in the day, I used to get suckered into the more. I still love them. Don't lie. The hype videos they're awesome. But back in the day, I remember staying up late, like going to my buddy's house, staying up late like every night back in like 2009, getting hyped for LaShawn McCoy.
Shady
McCoy Pitt highlight videos. We were watching them for hours, dude. We were getting so hype on this dude, and he was just breaking people off left and right. If you ever get a chance, look up the Shady McCoy Pitt highlight videos. And
I've probably watched them all, buddy.
I'm gonna say he looked like prime Barry Sanders, just killing people. I was so excited. I mean, I'd had him everywhere that year. And it was just me and my one buddy that were just so excited about him. Both of us. The only time that we didn't have him was when we were a draft with each other. But it was just so I can understand it. I can understand the love getting hyped in.
So I've been chasing the feeling of actually hitting like you just did, Norton. I've been chasing it for years. I tried it with Darwin Thompson when we first came about as a podcast. It's Kansas City, God damn it. I tried it with Sky Moore.
Oh, we talked about Darwin Thompson so much at work.
I loved Darwin Thompson. I loved him. But it all stems from watching a preseason game and seeing this guy come from San Diego, plays for the Falcons, Michael Turner, the burner, going off in this preseason. I'm like, I'm drafting him. I don't even think he was necessarily a starter at that time either.
Dude.
And I took him. It wasn't that early that I took him, and he went off that season.
Yeah, he was one of the success stories. Another one, Arian Foster, was another one that was like real hype that got going. Like, because obviously, pretty sure Foster was undrafted, right?
Yeah.
And he just like came out of nowhere, just killing it in preseason and stuff, and then his stock rose huge, and that ended up still being a value because he was like 4th, 5th round that year. But yeah, sometimes it does play out.
I think had a killer preseason and then ended up having an amazing year. And
yeah,
he was a 4th round. I think it was a 4th round RB out of the NFL. I think it might have been later, but there are those like random stories. It just doesn't seem to happen anymore. Analytics is too strong. You don't get that fun. You don't get that experience as much anymore.
And I think that's why I like I said, for my strategy most of the time is like I have those, like this year for me, it's there's Bijan, then there's a tier after that where it's the QBs with Gibbs and JSN, and then there's the three, Addison, QJ, and Flowers, and then after that, I'm just trying to trade out. I'm letting people trade up to take their favorite guys, take their shots, because some of them will hit, most of them won't. That's my thought on it. That's how I think of it, and I'm like, I'm going to trade and try to use this for either a proven or trade into next year's draft with more picks and try to use those picks to trade for proven talent.
Give me Downs over all of these guys. I'll just plant my flag right now.
It's fair. It could.
He is nasty. His size is just so underwhelming. And I'm really hoping that the size thing is just like we're changing, shifting the wide receivers, because he is 5'8", I think 175, 172. He's small.
Yeah. He is.
He plays big.
Yeah, he is pretty small. But I mean, like you said,
just likes them because they're the same size.
It's about the only NFL player that's my height. Actually, Deuce Vaughn, what's up, man? Short Kings. There was an SNL skit. It was like, it was a Short Kings. We'll have to play it on here, or I'll post it on Twitter later today. It's funny as shit. But that's what I mean. When we went to Fantasy Expo, House went with me and Rob, and then actually Norton was there too. And Norton, I'm not mistaken, but you're probably like 5'9", 5'10".
Yeah, about 5'9", probably. Yeah.
So House was holding the weight for all of us. He was walking around with freaking potato bugs that time. Like the guys from Bugs Life, like.
Oh man. That's funny.
Any last thoughts on these wide receivers, boys? Are we wrapping it up?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, for me, it's those main four guys are the guys that I'm like most excited about taking. After that, huge tier. Take your shots on your favorites. I think, like you said, I had Downs and Mims as my lowest. Those two seem to be your favorite, but
this is every year.
Yeah,
here we go.
Who knows though? That's the thing. Is like I for me, like I said, who knows? Like I don't know. I'm trying to lean into the fact that I'm not confident in it, and so I'd rather move on and let others take their favorite. But like you said, taking them
more on Downs than a few of these other guys. I've watched Mingo, Mims, and Downs. Hyatt and Jaden Reed and Rice I have not watched much of yet.
Yeah. No, that's fair for sure. I think like you said, I know you asked who you've been drafted the most. I think in terms of me drafting the most, I've drafted in only a few rookie drafts so far, but I got Mingo in 1 or 2, Rice in 1 or 2, and I think I actually got Reed 1 or 2. I've already traded them, so.
I've mentioned this tweet on this show before, but it's stuck and burned into my brain. But it was something like, can't help but wonder whoever drafts Jonathan Mingo is the mark, and it's burned in my head. Like Carolina, of course, would draft him, right, and take him early second. I don't know, so that's been stuck in my head for a while now. I really need to evaluate how I'm making decisions. Boys, next Wednesday, who is it? Is it me? No, I don't think it is me. Next Wednesday, we got Alex, Robbie, and Cody talking rookie tight ends. The class seems deep. The tight end class seems deep this year. I'm in my startup right now. I whiffed on all of them.
Question for you, even though it's not it's fully relevant to tight ends, rookie tight ends, and tight ends. Buddy of mine last week at basketball asked me, he says, do you prefer Kyle Pitts or Dalton Kincaid?
Wait, is that a serious one then?
He was serious. And I said, dude, Kyle Pitts.
Are you serious? Okay.
Yeah, that's what I said. I was like, and then he's like, well, I got an offer.
This is Dynasty, right?
Yeah, and he said he had an offer. I think it was like he was giving up Pitts in a second and he would get Kincaid in a late first. And I said, dude, I would need way more than that. And he's like, he kept trying to convince me that Kincaid and Pitts were like
I hate
same
when
level
people,
prospect
like,
too.
ask
I'm
me if
like,
you're gonna argue it.
yeah,
No
I know,
way.
I know.
Buffalo has a lot of the same things as Kansas City. Josh
That's
Allen
what I said. Yeah,
is an elite quarterback who spreads the ball. There's nothing saying that Kincaid is going to demand the targets. Maybe let's go back. The target share percentage that Kyle Pitts will have.
right.
We don't know how many times that ball gets thrown, but
Yeah.
eventually they're going to have a QB. They got a lot of parts. Kyle Pitts is still, I think, younger than Kincaid or close.
That just sounds like somebody got burned last year. That was hyped on Pitts, and
that's what I said.
Obviously, it didn't work out.
Yeah, he's like nope. Kincaid's the real deal. But I guess they'll be talking more about that Wednesday. Huh?
Yes, Kincaid. Yeah, I'm curious to hear their thoughts on Kincaid. Hopefully, we get Alex. I think Alex has Kincaid in one of our leagues. I think.
Okay.
We got a mock on Friday, I believe. Yeah, so we'll do another rookie mock on Friday, me and Rob. But yeah, we're wrapping up the rookies here.
Thursday, right?
Thursday. Thank you. We got the rest of our rookie talks this week. Then we're going to talk a little bit more Dynasty all next week. Then we're going to get into redraft, boys, the end of May. Time is coming.
Coming up quick.
Yeah, not quick enough. It does suck because you always wish for this to happen, and then the next thing you know, summer's gone.
Right.
Every year.
Flies by.
Yeah, you go, I can't wait for football. Next thing you know, it's if you're in Ohio, it's -20. Damn, give me back to summer.
I know, right?
Amen.
You guys hear me? Am I cutting out?
Good so far.
Okay, if you guys aren't already following us on Twitter at DadBodFS, we're on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. We're on all of them now, Dadbod Fantasy Squad. We got our podcast. We'll post them on all the major streaming platforms. For myself, for House, for Norton, peace. Oh, follow Norton at Norton0723. Exit outro down.